Beatrice stared at the glowing screen of her phone in her Chicago apartment at 11:51 p.m. when an email from her mother Jennifer arrived with the subject line simply workshop. Her heart plummeted. The message was brief: Venus, Kevin, and I have decided we are selling the workshop to his investors. I need you to sign the attached papers releasing your co-ownership inherited from your father, Michael. This is for my future security. Betrayal struck cold and immediate before Beatrice could even fully absorb the words. A second email pinged from an unfamiliar law firm on behalf of client Kevin Doyle. We offer $10,000 for your immediate full release of all claims to the property and legacy. $10,000 for Michael's lifelong masterpiece of custom boat craftsmanship. Beatrice felt no tears, no screams, no expected surge of rage, only a frigid crystalline clarity, descending like surgical steel. This was not family discord, this was calculated theft. She disregarded the insulting offer entirely. At 12:03 a.m., precisely 12 minutes after Jennifer's email, Beatrice dialed Robert Chen, her father's oldest friend and the family attorney. It rang to voicemail. She left no. Pause. Robert, this is Beatrice Morgan. I apologize for the hour, but the sale is in motion. They are attempting to liquidate the workshop. They are in material breach. Activate the artisan clause now. Freeze every transaction, every asset. I board the first flight to Portland, Maine at dawn. She ended the call, opened her laptop, booked a one-way ticket, then unlocked her encrypted drive. They had committed a fatal error, assuming Beatrice was merely the estranged daughter who fled to Chicago to become a renowned architect and abandon her roots. They forgot she was the silent partner, the one who co-signed Michael's expansion loan when every bank laughed him out of the room. They forgot the nights she poured over contracts with him, drafted blueprints for the new wing, and embedded the ironclad artisan clause decreeing the property could only host master-level custom craft forever, banning mass production or cheap imitations, a safeguard for Michael's soul against a world that prized speed over artistry. She never dreamed she would wield it against Jennifer, his own widow. They also erased the past 3 years after Michael died. Jennifer crumbled under finances. The workshop faced tax auction in 60 days. Beatrice received the notice, paid $12,000 wired silently from Chicago, uncovered every property tax since without a word. They saw the daughter who left. They were about to confront the partner who never abandoned the legacy. Yet $12,000 was mere maintenance. The true stake was $85,000. Beatrice invested 4 years ago, immediately after Michael's death, and just before Kevin slithered into Jennifer's life. Father and daughter designed the foundation project. Together, the 1940s workshop was rotting from sea, air sagging roof, failing beams. Michael, master boat builder, but no engineer. Beatrice flew home 3 consecutive weekends, conducted structural surveys, drew architectural plans, hired contractors, paid every invoice. $85,000, not charity, but equity in their shared heritage. She emailed Jennifer every paid receipt, building a paper fortress she believed would shield them all. She was wrong. She built it against the world, not against Jennifer. Morning erupted with Jennifer's frantic call. Beatrice in a cab racing from Portland Airport. Icy Maine coastline blurring past. She answered to shrieks. Venus, what have you done? Robert Chen froze every account. Kevin's investors are livid. The deal collapses. You are annihilating my future. Beatrice kept her voice level as surgical steel. I am preserving what Michael built with his hands and heart. Jennifer scoffed, panic cracking her tone. Michael is dead. Venus, this is my life now. You have your glittering Chicago career. Why do you even care? The phone fumbled, a muffled bellow, Kevin's voice thick with morning whiskey. You think you are clever, don't you, little city brat? The workshop is mine. I have run it for years. Beatrice cut in. Running it into ruin, you mean? Her own chill startled her. Kevin snarled. You will regret this. You get nothing, absolutely nothing. The line died. Beatrice sat motionless, phone humming, the rage still not hot, but diamond hard precise. An hour later, Facebook pinged. Jennifer had posted publicly on the town page, tagging Beatrice's grandmother Susan. It is heartbreaking when children forget who raised them, when Success turns them cold, and they steal their own mothers. Future please pray we are under attack by family. That post severed the final thread of obligation. Jennifer chose Kevin over Michael's memory and handed Beatrice license for total war. Beatrice landed in Portland. Met Robert Chen in his office, the man who once hoisted her on his shoulders at boatyard picnics. His face grim, eyes razor sharp. He slid a thick file across the desk. Venus, you were wise beyond 19 when you drafted this. He tapped the yellow highlighted artisan clause. Properties shall remain exclusively for master level. Custom craft. Any mass production or prefabricated goods constitutes material breach of deed. Robert leaned back. Kevin Doyle assembles cheap fiberglass shells imported from overseas slabs. Morgan inspired labels on them. He is no craftsman. Validation hit cold and exquisite. Injunction stands, Beatrice stated. It stands, Robert confirmed, but victory requires proving damages beyond breach desecration of the legacy itself. Then we audit everything, Beatrice declared, voice pure architect. They drove to the workshop, her childhood sanctuary she had not entered in for years. The house sagged, paint peeling, custom trim, Michael milled by hand. Now blistered garden replaced by gravel. The workshop itself froze her blood. Kevin lounged by open bay doors, beer in hand, smirking. The prodigal architect returns. Come witness a real business. Beatrice ignored him, eyes sweeping the space like a crime scene investigator. Where is it, she asked, voice lethally quiet. Where is what Kevin mocked? Michael's laid his workbench, hand-built from the salvaged albatross mast. Kevin waved his beer toward a heap of splintered wood in the corner. That antique junk dry-rotted. Had to rip it out, made room for modern finishing stations. Beatrice stepped closer to the pile, fingers brushing the fractured oak, her father's blood. Sweat and genius reduced to landfill, her vengeance crystallizing into something eternal, colder than the Atlantic beyond the doors. You dare touch his soul work, you dare sell his sanctuary for fiberglass lies. And $10,000, you will learn the exact cost of trespassing on a legacy I own in blood and blueprints. Kevin laughed, but the sound cracked. This is my operation now, little girl, your daddy's ghost does not pay bills. Beatrice pulled out her phone, already recording. His voice steady as a scalpel record. Every word, Kevin, because your operation ends today. The artisan clause is law. Your mass-produced garbage violates it. The 85,000 I poured into these beams gives me standing. The 12,000 annual taxes I paid in silence gives me equity, and the workbench you splintered is evidence of willful desecration worth more in damages than your entire fraudulent deal. Robert Chen stood behind her, nodding. The injunction already filed, deputies en route to secure the premises. Kevin's smirk faltered. You cannot freeze my investors. They have contracts. Beatrice advanced one step, voice dropping to glacial zero. Those contracts die the moment the court sees your overseas invoices labeled Morgan. Originals the moment they measure your factory line hulls against Michael's hand-planed curvature, the moment they calculate how many masterworks you destroyed. To install your conveyor belt, you will beg for $10,000 to cover the fines I will levy. Jennifer rushed in, then face blotchy with panic. Venus, stop this madness. Kevin is giving me a future. Beatrice turned, eyes arctic. You chose a future built on Michael's grave over the daughter who saved it. You chose a con man over the artisan clause you mocked. You chose to publicly slander the child who paid your taxes and restored your roof. Now live with the choice, because the workshop stays craft or it stays empty. But it will never belong to either of you again. Kevin lunged for her phone, snarling, I will smash every clause you hide behind. Beatrice did not flinch. Deputies arrived, sirens cutting the salt air, cuffs ready. Robert handed over the injunction. Kevin, you are hereby barred from the premises pending litigation for breach, fraud, and intentional destruction of protected artisanal assets. Jennifer wailed, Kevin, as deputies escorted him out, his beer spilling across the concrete like cheap blood. Beatrice knelt beside the splintered workbench, gathered a single oak shard still bearing Michael's chisel marks, slipped it into an evidence bag. her voice whispering to the ghost in the wood. They will pay for every grain they dared to break. And I will rebuild you, plank by perfect plank. While they watch from the ruin of their greed, she stood, turned to Robert. Initiate full forensic audit. Seize every fiberglass hull, every fake label, every offshore invoice. Then file for treble damages under the artisan clause, plus emotional desecration of legacy. Robert nodded, already dialing the judge. This ends in total restoration or total demolition, but never in their hands. Beatrice walked the workshop floor, once sacred, now profaned, her footsteps echoing like gavels. Every beam she saved, every dollar she invested. Now weapons in a war she would wage without mercy or pause until Michael's name rang true again, and Jennifer and Kevin learned the precise freezing price of betraying a daughter who became the fortress they never saw coming. Kevin gestured dismissively toward a flimsy particle board table slathered in uneven varnish. Beatrice pulled out her phone, not for tears, not for screams, but to open the camera app. Robert, she ordered her voice clinical and absolute begin full documentation now. She started the audit with methodical precision. Michael's hand-forged tools inherited from his own father vanished from their sacred wall pegs, replaced by garish plastic-handled power drills. The pegboard where Michael had outlined every tool in thick black marker now hung empty and mocking. The gorgeous exposed oak beams overhead, the ones Beatrice had helped sand and oil by hand, now suffocated under a grotesque layer of cheap gray paint. In the main bay where Michael's unfinished custom schooner hull had rested for a decade, his ultimate masterpiece now stood 3 identical mass-produced fiberglass motorboat shells, the exact kits Robert had warned about. The air reeked of toxic resin and chemical solvents, not the honest scent of sawdust and cedar. This was not neglect, this was systematic extermination. Kevin was not operating a business, he was deliberately obliterating every trace of Michael Morgan. He is not merely in breach of contract, Beatrice announced loudly enough for Kevin to hear every syllable. She photographed the sloppy paint job, the gouged floor, where Michael's workbench had been violently torn out. He is committing fraud, theft of craft. He is slapping the Morgan Boat's name on this garbage, while destroying everything my father built with his own hands. Kevin's face bloated to purple rage. You cannot prove one damn thing. This is progress. This is the future. Beatrice replied, we will see every detail in court. She turned to Robert, get a complete forensic accounting. I want every single one of Michael's original blueprints located, and I want to know exactly where every penny from the sale of his tools disappeared. She spun back to Kevin. You should have accepted the $10,000 while you had the chance, because that insult is the last offer you will ever receive from me. Beatrice believed the battle centered on the artisan clause, a simple contract fight against a con man. She was catastrophically wrong. Robert called that evening from her hotel, his usual steady attorney tone replaced by shaken fury. Beatrice, I found it. This is not breach. This is criminal. She sat hard. What do you mean? The $85,000 restoration loan you wired for years ago, Robert said, voice tight with disgust. It never reached the contractors. Kevin intercepted every cent. Beatrice struggled to breathe. He stole it. Robert continued worse. He manipulated Jennifer into paying the contractors from her personal savings, claiming temporary cash flow issues, then funneled your $85,000 directly into his personal gambling debts. Beatrice waited, knuckles white, on the phone. He then used the newly restored property, the one you personally saved, to secure another $85,000 business loan. He mortgaged Michael's legacy all over again. Beatrice protested, he cannot. I am co-owner. I never signed a single document. Robert's voice dropped. Kevin forged Jennifer's signature on the bank paperwork, and Beatrice, he attempted to forge yours as well. The bank flagged the mismatch, forcing him to a private lender, but the intent is crystal clear. This is bank fraud, forgery, larceny. The ground vanished beneath her. This was not about fiberglass shells. This was a calculated conspiracy to hollow out her family and sell the carcass How, Beatrice whispered, could she allow this? How could she be so blind? Robert sighed. Jennifer was not blind, she was ensnared. Emotional dependency is a prison. When Michael died, he left a void of identity, not just companionship. Kevin arrived, charming, attentive, filling that emptiness before the mask. Slipped by then isolation, drinking, failed schemes she feared. Solitude more than ruin, he convinced her family. Abandoned her, that you abandoned her, he became her only lifeline, not weakness, but learned helplessness. She co-signed her own destruction just to share a meal. Beatrice understood, yet understanding did not equal absolution. He did not simply defraud a bank, Beatrice told Robert, cold clarity returning. He preyed on a grieving widow, he targeted my blood. Robert asked Venus, what do you want me to do? File everything, Beatrice commanded. The civil breach, the damages suit, and the full criminal complaint for forgery. Fraud, larceny. Deliver the complete dossier to the district attorney now. Negotiations, no mercy. The war escalates now. The final confrontation was orchestrated. Robert, the local sheriff, who had known Michael his entire life, and Beatrice pulled up to the workshop exactly as predicted. Jennifer and Kevin were not packing, they were frantically loading equipment and to fiberglass kits onto a flatbed trailer, attempting to liquidate assets before the injunction locked the gates. Kevin spotted them, his alcohol-flushed face twisting to blotchy purple. He screamed, jabbing a finger at Beatrice. You cannot set foot here. This is my property. Investors are waiting on delivery. Beatrice stepped from the vehicle, voice low, unshaking. This is not your property, never was. She held a single folder. The sheriff flanked, her hand resting on his belt. Kevin bellowed, I have a deal. You cannot stop this. This is my business. Beatrice countered, it was never your business. It was Michael's. She raised the document for him to see, highlighted, artisan clause, the one. Michael, and I authored the one you violated the instant you dragged plastic garbage across his threshold. The injunction is absolute. You have been in breach for 3 full years. Kevin's eyes darted to the sheriff, then back, desperation rising like bile. But before he could charge, Jennifer bolted from the house, face streaked with tears and panic, clutching Beatrice's arm. Venus, no, please, honey. Do not do this. We will lose everything, the house, the workshop. We will have nothing. Kevin was building us a future. Beatrice gestured to the fiberglass shells. This is not a future, this is desecration. Jennifer begged, clutching her jacket tighter. If you ever loved me, do this for your mother. Asterisk, the air froze. Beatrice stared into Jennifer's eyes and saw not her mother, but a stranger. I am not doing this to you, Jennifer, Beatrice said, voice slicing through sobs like a scalpel. I am doing this for Michael. She pulled free, turned to the sheriff, handed him the thick second folder. This is the court injunction plus criminal referral. Serve it now. The sheriff nodded. Deputies moving forward. Kevin, you are hereby barred from these premises, all assets frozen pending litigation for breach of contract, fraud, forgery, larceny, and intentional destruction of protected artisanal property. Jennifer wailed Kevin as deputies seized the trailer keys and escorted him toward the patrol car. His shouts echoing, you will regret this. I will burn this place before you take it. Beatrice knelt amid the chaos, gathered a splinter from Michael's destroyed workbench, slipped it into an evidence bag. Her whisper to the would they will pay for every fiber they dared splinter, and I will rebuild you grain by perfect grain, while they rot in the consequences of their greed. She stood instructed. Robert, initiate seizure of every fiberglass hull, every counterfeit label, every forged document. Then demand treble damages under the artisan clause plus punitive awards for emotional desecration of legacy. Robert already on the phone to the judge. This ends in full restitution or total demolition, but never in their possession again. Beatrice walked the violated floor, once holy, now profaned. Every beam she saved, every dollar she invested now. Ammunition in a war she would prosecute without hesitation or remorse until Michael's name rang pure, and Jennifer and Kevin learned the Arctic price of betraying the daughter who became the unbreakable fortress they never anticipated. Beatrice slapped her hand on the thick binder and told the sheriff, this is a criminal complaint. complete with irrefutable evidence of bank fraud, forgery, and the theft of an $85,000 restoration loan. Jennifer's face went ghostly white. Kevin stared, comprehension crashing over him far too late. The sheriff looked at the top page, then fixed his gaze on Kevin Doyle. "You are under arrest for fraud, forgery, and larceny." Chaos broke like a ruptured dam. Kevin did not merely resist, he detonated, screaming obscenities at Beatrice, at Jennifer, at the sheriff, branding Beatrice a vindictive, scheming bitch who would ruin everything out of spite. As deputies cuffed him and recited his rights, Kevin continued his venom. "You will get nothing. I will burn every plank to ash before you claim one splinter." The sheriff shoved him into the cruiser without ceremony. Jennifer collapsed onto the gravel driveway, her sobs hollow, broken, echoing like a shell without a soul. Beatrice refused to look at her, refused to soften. She turned her head and stared past the wreckage into the workshop, fixating on the empty, scarred floor, the oil stains and bolt holes where Michael's workbench had anchored 30 years of genius, the sacred space where he taught her to read compass arcs and honor wood grain, now violated and sold for scrap. Beatrice drew a slow breath. Goodbye, Jennifer. She pivoted, entered her car, and drove away, leaving Jennifer crumpled amid the ruins she had helped create. Kevin was convicted on every count: forgery, larceny, fraud. His oh-so-carefully curated local narrative of legitimate craft crumbled overnight. The town papers splashing headlines about the con man, who attempted to plunder the Morgan Boatyard legacy. He got 7 years in state prison. Jennifer faced no charges. Robert and Beatrice debated, but the district attorney classified her as a victim of prolonged financial and emotional abuse. She shattered completely with Kevin gone. The fog of dependency lifted, replaced by a tsunami of shame. She moved in with her sister, began therapy for the first time in her life. Their relationship remained fractured, perhaps irreparably, but it existed in a cold knot of distance. Beatrice spent the next month in Maine, not in the house, but steeped in the workshop. The stench of chemical resin and cheap paint overwhelming at first. She hired a professional crew. They began the purge, ripping out particle board tables, stripping hideous gray paint from sacred oak beams, scrubbing floors to erase assembly oil stains. On the final day, while sweeping debris from beneath main floorboards, her broom struck something solid, a loose plank. Heart pounding, Beatrice retrieved a crowbar, pried it gently. Beneath, wrapped in oilcloth, nestled in a custom recess Michael himself had carved into the foundation, lay his priceless tool roll, hand-forged chisels, custom mallets, the brass and rosewood marking gauge Kevin had sworn rotted to junk. He never sold them. He simply lacked the wit to discover Michael's hiding place. Beatrice sank to the dusty floor, cradling cold steel in her palms, and finally wept. She surveyed the empty, cleansed workshop and confronted 11 years of Chicago guilt. The lie that she was the cold daughter who abandoned her family, who ran. Holding Michael's legacy, she saw truth. Society preaches absolute family loyalty. Cutting toxic ties equals betrayal. Yet sometimes departure is not abandonment. It is self-preservation, not fleeing something, but racing toward the only self resilient enough to endure. Beatrice had to leave, had to forge success in Chicago, accumulate armor, wealth, strength, 11 years hammering herself into a weapon, so that when war arrived, she could return and annihilate the enemy who declared it. Distance was never weakness. It was rigorous training. Beatrice Rose walked to the sole surviving workbench, the drafting table she and Michael had built together, unrolled his pristine, hand-drawn schooner blueprints, ink still razor-sharp, lines precise. Beside them, she spread her own new blueprints designed across a decade in her mind. Title block simple: the Michael Morgan Institute of Artisan Craft. The workshop stood silent no longer, no mausoleum, but bedrock foundation. Kevin rots behind bars for 7 years, paying daily for every forgery, every lie, every splinter he dared touch. Jennifer cowers in shame therapy, peeling back layers of manipulation. Yet she will never again set foot in the workshop without Beatrice's explicit consent. Beatrice herself stands guardian of the legacy rebuilt beam by beam, tool by tool. The artisan claws now engraved in steel, not paper, ensuring no mass-produced garbage ever profanes these walls again. Every future craft will bear Michael's name in truth. Every student will learn his methods. Every hull will curve with his soul. Jennifer begged once more by letter from her sister's spare room. Venus, forgive me. Let me visit the place I destroyed. Beatrice replied with a single postcard. The Institute welcomes visitors by appointment only. Apologies are noted, but access is earned through actions, not words. Kevin's final prison rant reached her through Robert. I will appeal. I will sue. I will expose you. Beatrice filed it under evidence of ongoing harassment, added another restraining order. Watched the judge extend his sentence for threats. The war ended not in negotiated peace, but in absolute victory. The workshop purified. The fraudsters banished. The daughter transformed into fortress and legacy, eternal. Michael's tools hang once more on pegboard, outlined in fresh black marker. The oak beams gleam with new oil. The schooner hull rises, plank by perfect plank under Beatrice's supervision. And the Institute's first class of apprentices learns that true craft, like true vengeance, demands precision, patience, and an unbreakable will. Jennifer's watching from afar, barred from the grounds, as her future is reduced to the consequences she co-signed. Kevin counts days in a cell, dreaming of fiberglass empires that never were. Beatrice signs every Institute document with the same pen her father used her signature, a cold, calculated promise that no one will ever steal Michael's soul again.